Is it me or are those clocks fast? Because I make it 2 o'clock. And we're starting on time. Anyway, welcome to the Planning Committee, 6th of May 2026. Good afternoon. My name's Alison Thompson. I'm a councillor for Regency Ward and chair of the Planning Committee. So let me just explain a little bit about the Planning Committee. This is a quasi-judicial body whereby committee members are required to put their politics to one side and they cannot be whipped by their political groups when determining planning applications. Planning Committee members must come to committee with an open mind and must judge an application on its planning merits alone, taking into account the National Planning Policy Framework, the adopted development city plan parts 1 and 2, and material planning considerations. As part of each presentation, I will ask the case officer to introduce themselves to committee members and attending public. And would committee members please note that where a decision is made on an agenda item, to be able to participate in the debate and vote, you must be present throughout the entirety of the committee's consideration of that item, including the officer presentation, any public speaking, and the question and debate session. In the event that a member needs to leave the chamber briefly during the consideration of any item, but still wishes to participate, you should indicate to me as chair that you need to be excused. And if that's the case, I will briefly suspend the meeting for the duration of your absence. Can I remind members that mobile phones should not be used as a means of communication during the meeting? And if members need to make or receive a message via their phone, please alert me as chair. Where members are using tablets to access agenda papers electronically, can you please ensure that these are switched to airplane mode? Thank you. So, to talk you through the process, the following order will be followed for each of the agenda items. First, a presentation by planning officers, then we will go to speakers if there are any, planning officer clarifications if required, then we go on to committee member questions, followed by debate, and then followed by the vote. We will take breaks during the meeting, when and how many depends on how long the discussions take for each application. Thank you. So first off, may I ask if there are any members in attendance as substitutes today? No? Great. And do any members wish to declare any interest in relation to any applications on the agenda? Councillor Theobald.
I've had lots of emails to do with Old Shoreham Road and a phone call which I said I couldn't make any comment.
Thank you. I think we've all received those. Councillor Earthy? No. We have indeed all received them. Thank you. We now consider whether, in view of the possible confidential nature of the business or proceedings, if the press and public should be excluded from the meeting when any of the planning applications are under consideration. And I can confirm that we don't have any confidential items today, so press and public are most welcome and not to be excluded. Next we'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Does the committee approve the minutes of 1st of April 2026 attached to the agenda? Thank you. Then comes Chair's communications, but I have very little to communicate to you today, I'm afraid, nothing of any import. So we'll move swiftly on to public involvement, which I understand there's none for this meeting. And on site visits, do committee members have any requests for accompanied site visits in relation to any of the applications that we're considering today? No. So we will move on to the planning applications. The Democratic Services Officer will now read out the applications on the agenda and ask committee members if they want to discuss the items as they are called. Please be aware that applications need to be called for discussion, not just for questions.
Thank you, Chair. So just to run through the applications, we have one major, which is BH 2025/00019-267 Old Shoreham Road, Brighton. As a major, that is called, but it does have speakers as well. Moving on to the minors, we have item B, which is BH 2025/0264023 Bryant Street, Hove. Do members wish to discuss this application? Thank you. Moving on to item C, BH 2026/00046 63 Halliburton Road, Hove. Do members wish to discuss this application? Thank you. Moving on to item D, BH 2026/003939 19 New England Street. This has speakers, so we will be calling that for discussion. And moving on to the last item, item E, BH 2026/001588 8 Windmill Drive, Brighton. Do members wish to discuss this application? Thank you. Yeah. So just to confirm, item A is automatically called as a major and with speakers. Item B has not been called, which means that the item is agreed as per the officer recommendation. Item C has not been called, so that is also agreed as per the officer recommendation. Item D has been called as it has speakers, and item E has also been called as it has been called by a member of the committee. So the running order will be A, followed by D, and then followed by E. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Sean. So let's start with our first planning application, and Chris is the planning officer who's going to give us the presentation. Is that? Oh, sorry, Stephen, I do beg your pardon. Sorry. Over to you, Stephen. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. So the first application is number 267 Old Shoreham Road. That's BH 2025/00013. And the application itself is for erection of a freestanding drive-through restaurant, landscaping, car parking with associated works, and including customer order displays, CODs, and demolition of the existing buildings which are on site. So, map of the application site, you can see it's located out towards the western side, so Hove, heading out towards the Portslade side of the city. Existing location, so to the northern side of Old Shoreham Road, and 2 buildings on there at the moment are part of the application site, an east and north building, as you can see. Aerial photo, so you can see better there, there's a car parking stroke hard standing area to the western side of the site, and 2 buildings. And then here are more details, so the east building to the right hand side of the photo, and then the north building to the northern side at the top of the photo. And then the 2 buildings incorporated on the site, and then you can see the buildings to the left hand side and the right hand side of the photo, they don't form part of the site. So you've got a large building to the right hand side and then a smaller step down with the land to the left hand side. Street photos looking west along Old Shoreham Road and then east on Old Shoreham Road. Just to give you an idea of the road, as you can see it's dual carriageway both ways in this area. And then internal photos, so this is the northern building, the smaller building on site. It's currently occupied by, as a warehouse by Pavilion Batteries. And then this is the photos of the eastern building, so it's currently operating the trade counter, tool, hire repair area with warehousing to the rear. And then just a hard standing stroke car parking area to the centre and west of the site. More photos. And then existing block plan, so you can see the 2 buildings north and east. And then this is what is proposed. So you can see here the applicant is McDonald's, so they've on the plan it says McDonald's, so it's a demolition of the 2 buildings and then reorganisation of hard standing car parking to create a drive-through restaurant. And the process for a drive-through restaurant take away approximately 350 square metres in size, and this is identified as a main town centre use within the NPPF, so that's a National Planning Policy Framework. The existing sui generis business use buildings on site would be demolished, so that's the north and east building, and there would lead to a total loss of 984 square metres of employment space, but a net loss of 628 because clearly some will be replaced by the drive-through restaurant use. The use of the restaurant would fall within use class E normally, and the hot food takeaway and drive-through element would be sui generis use. The proposal is therefore considered overall to be a sui generis use due to the blending of the differing use classes. So existing building again to the north, and then a larger building to the east, the floor plan. So all one level at this point in time. And this is the proposal, so smaller than the eastern building. And you see you've got a dining public area to the bottom right of this photo, and then you've got the ancillary kitchens and then storage areas more towards the north and outside storage to the north, so the left-hand side of this photo. Roof plan with various plants on top, and then proposed elevations. So you've got the west and the northern elevations, as you can see, single story, and then also the east and the southern elevations. So the main customer entrance will be on the western elevation. Representations, I've had a significant amount of representations and a significant number of objections and support. The ones for objection have included from the Alderton Primary School, the Cardinal Newman Catholic School, Hove Park School, Blackstone Mill School, Goldstone Primary School, and Hove Civic Society and the Regency Society. And they're objecting, I won't go through all of the objections, and this is a summary anyway, but they're objecting predominantly on amenity impacts, design, transport matters, environmental concerns, community concerns, economic considerations, and Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Allen and Councillor Bagroff have also objected on grounds of lack of consultation, additional traffic, road safety, public health concerns, harms to the community, adverse impact on character of the area, and also residential amenity. And then there's been significant support as well, and those have been supporting based on it's a vacant site that needs development. It's not, just to note, the site isn't vacant, as you can see from the photos and the site visit I've carried out. So it meets local demands, it generates employment and increased tax and business rates. The negative impacts of any public health are overstated. Reduced congestions and emissions as close to the McDonald's drive-through in Shoreham. Good design, and in keeping with the listed building, there is no listed building on site, so just bear that in mind. So key considerations are the loss of the employment floor space and the addition of a use which is inappropriate for a protected employment site, design and appearance, transport and highway matters, impacts on the neighbour immunity, public health issues, and also, if everybody could bear in mind that the uses, I know a lot of the comments have been made in respect of it being a McDonald's. Well, they're not applying for a McDonald's here, they're applying for a drive-through restaurant, yeah? The use isn't personal to McDonald's, so it could be any operator, and that's what we're considering here, and that's what has been considered in the report, and obviously when you're considering it for determination, it's any operator that could be using this, it's not specific to McDonald's. So conclusion and planning balance is the proposal would be accepted in terms of design and appearance, given the context in the current location. Amenity, there would be some harm to the neighbouring properties, but they're not directly adjacent to it, and any issues we believe as officers could be mitigated by conditions imposed. Transport, there are still unresolved concerns regarding highway safety, predominantly about queuing on the highway and pedestrian safety at the crossing. And also there is no provision of parking in relation to the proposed use on site. Public health, there are concerns regarding this being an out-of-town location for a fast food outlet. It's in proximity to schools. There is a prevalence of fast food outlets generally in the city, and there are existing high levels of obesity, which can be potentially exacerbated by this type of use being allowed here. And then there's various questions raised by public health in respect of the menu choices and the substance of the menus themselves. And it's generally contrary in their view to the healthy city strategy. And then employment and policy, there are concerns about the loss of employment floor space because there will be loss on site in total. And the site, importantly, is a safeguarded employment site. So it's designated in the local plan, or city plan, I should say, as English Close Industrial Area, and it's safeguarded and protected for industrial space, which predominantly fall under use class E3, B2 and B8 use classes, which the drive-through use doesn't meet. And the reason it's protected is because generally those are in demand in the city, but they don't generate a very high rental receipt nor capital value. So other uses that fall outside those classes will generally create better value, maybe for the landlords, and therefore there's a pressure to do those type of uses instead of the ones identified here, hence the protection of the site as an employment use. And then on balance and taking into account all of these issues and the NPPF, so the National Planning Policy Framework, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, just before I move on, We have other officers present in respect of transport matters, policy matters, and also for public health. So they're just to the side. So if there's anything I'm not able to elaborate on or any questions, we can direct them to them. So there's Alistair Wormsley from the transport side, Dr. Katie Cumming from public health, and then Helen Gregory from policy. So they're available if we need them as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. That's great, because I was actually going to ask who forgot to ask questions. Great. Could I ask Emma Russell, please? Have a seat, Emma. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. You've got 3 minutes, and it's the bottom right-hand button that you want to speak, and start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Emma Russell, and I live in the Hangleton and Knoll area, close to where the McDonald's is being proposed. I'm here to represent those residents of Hangleton and Knoll who oppose the planning application for the drive-through McDonald's. The two main objections that we have that we wanted to bring today are around public health and around road safety and pollution. The first one, public health. The proposed McDonald's drive-through will be based on the Old Shoreham Road, close to the junction of Holmes Avenue. This road's a major walking route to and from the main secondary schools serving the west side of our city. The children walk under the tunnel at Aldrington and up towards Blatchington Mill, Hove Park and King's Schools, and we also have Goldstone Primary nearby. There's over 3,000 Key Stage 3 and 4 students who are walking up and down on a daily basis, and who will be going past and very close to that McDonald's. We have concerns that this is targeting young people, and we live in an area with increased rates of deprivation and health inequalities. We really care about the well-being of our children. We feel that we have strategies in the city to protect young people with regards to sexual health, health and well-being, mental health, and this is no different, and that for this reason it should be, shouldn't be allowed. Also, we note that the National Planning Policy Framework states that local planning authorities should be encouraged to refuse applications for hot food takeaways and fast food outlets that are near places where children congregate, and that prioritising preventing ill health should be a priority. Again, for this reason, we feel this is not an appropriate location for a drive-through McDonald's that's open very long hours. We really hope that you'll listen to our concerns and those of the head teachers in the local area as well. The second point is road safety and pollution. We believe the placing of the high volume drive-through McDonald's close to Holmes Avenue on an already very busy, quite dangerous junction with many entrance points onto it, including Curry's, Big Yellow Storage and the cemeteries, with the delivery mopeds coming in and out and idling cars waiting to order, will impact road safety, pollution levels and the lives of residents who already have to deal with a lot of traffic getting in and out of the area. So we're really concerned about the impact on all the residents for that reason. We feel it conflicts directly with Brighton and Hove's own 2023 to 27 plan for the city, which talks about a city to be proud of, that focuses on sustainability and safe and clean environments, that aims to reduce inequalities and to reduce pollution. We don't feel that this is compatible with a drive-through McDonald's in the middle of our city, which would add to pollution and potentially increase the rates of obesity in young people. And we really want to protect our young people and our environment. We feel this is a motorway service model. Actually,
I'm going to have to stop you there. You've had your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
But
it
thank
goes
you.
fast.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hewitt. When you're ready, 3 minutes.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. I support the planning officer's recommendation to refuse this application, and I urge the committee to do the same. While applications from companies like McDonald's often spark wider moral debate, today I want to focus on the local impact on Hangleton and Knoll and neighbouring wards. The proposed site sits within a small but well-functioning industrial estate currently used for light commercial, office and retail purposes during standard working hours. It is surrounded by sensitive uses, including residential streets such as Elm Drive, Acacia Avenue, Maple Gardens and Holmes Avenue, as well as Hove Cemetery, the fire station and the busy Old Shoreham Road. Introducing a drive-through restaurant would fundamentally change the character of this area. This model relies heavily on car use and would increase traffic in the area, especially when entering and exiting the site, as well as encouraging delivery drivers using cars and motorbikes. The Old Shoreham Road A270 is already a key arterial route, and additional traffic would place a strain on the road network and nearby junctions such as the one at Holmes Avenue and Old Shoreham Road. There are also significant concerns from the community. In addition to the 300 plus objections, 5 local schools have objected, highlighting that hundreds of pupils would pass the site twice daily during opening hours. With potential changes at Hove Park Neville campus, these numbers could increase further. I am sure that the applicant would be aware of this, and it might suggest why they have chosen this site for the restaurant. I welcome that the applicant has recognised that their original proposal of opening 24 hours a day would have a negative impact on neighbours, but it is important to recognise that this proposal of 18 hours a day, 6 a.m. until midnight, would do so as well. We may hear from the applicant that they plan to alleviate or mitigate the impact their application would have, be that they would organise litter picks or that their menu includes the option of purchasing a salad. But as detailed in 4.2 of the report, this restaurant and drive-through could in the future be occupied by any other operator. I would like to thank Emma for the representation on behalf of residents and for all the organisation they have undertaken to highlight their sincere and genuine concerns on the impact that this application would have on them. For these reasons, alongside objections received and the professional recommendations in the report, I urge the committee to stick by the recommendation and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Mike Spurgeon here, please? Good afternoon, Mr. Spurgeon. Have a seat. You have 3 minutes when you're ready. It's the bottom right-hand button. You just need to switch it on when you're ready. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chair. First, I should say that we very much appreciate the concerns raised about the proximity of the site to schools and places where young people may congregate. Certainly, the objective of restricting hot food takeaways close to schools is well-meaning, and the test at paragraph 97 of the NPPF is well established. However, this is very much based on the assumption that the proposed development will attract school children and that this would be harmful or undesirable. What we're not talking about there is a McDonald's next to a school, and the closest such school is nearly half a mile away. There are a number of similar outlets nearby, including at Goldstone Retail Park, which is within 500 metres of the nearby secondary school. And the test of what would be a reasonable walking distance is something that's been given great consideration elsewhere, and there's strong evidence, including in the form of appeal decisions, about what represents a reasonable walking distance. Anything over 400 metres starts to become more difficult in that respect, or considered reasonable. In respect of highways, the main concerns that officers have are the over-provision of parking, modelling variation and highway safety. The parking provision is necessary to ensure there will be sufficient parking available to those driving to the store, while extensive external modelling of the highways be undertaken based on up-to-date traffic and queue surveys. We're confident that the impacts have been fully assessed and there will be no adverse effects. A thorough examination of highway safety implications has also been undertaken by independent auditors who were approved by the local highways authority, and all relevant matters are believed to have been addressed. As regards the loss of employment land, it's correct that policy CP3 requires marketing of the site for commercial and industrial uses before others are considered acceptable. This policy approach, while widespread in planning, is contradictory to one of the main themes of the NPPF and requirement, and is often an obstacle to the reuse of previously developed land and buildings such as this for this type of purpose. Ultimately fails to create the conditions for businesses to invest, expand and adapt as set out in paragraph 85 of the framework. Indeed, the use class order now recognises that this form fails to distinguish between the different types of employment which may be created. McDonald's clearly has a very strong track record of investing in people and providing good quality jobs and opportunities for career progression. Indeed, the range of jobs that will be created and the wider positive impacts on the local economy are factors that should be afforded greater recognition in the assessment of this planning application. What is clearly absent from the officer's report to this committee is a proper consideration of the benefits of the proposed development. There's just a single brief reference to the absence of any public benefits in the conclusion, which we believe is incorrect. The NPPF requires that economic, social and environmental benefits of a development are given proper consideration and afforded weight in assessing planning applications. In this case, there are between 100 and 120 jobs anticipated directly in terms of employment, which contributes to achieving the social objective of supporting strong, vibrant and healthy communities. And in environmental terms, the proposed development will create a much more attractive frontage onto Shoreham Road, providing informal surveillance and a much improved environment for pedestrians.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there, you're out of time, but thank you very much for joining us and thank you for your presentation. So, let's go for some questions. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Cattell. Are you waving at me? You're waving at Councillor Parrott. That's lovely. Who would like to start off with some questions? Thank you, Councillor Shear.
Thank you. Can someone just quickly remind me before I look a bit silly, who was it who was raising concerns about traffic build-up on Old Shoreham Road on accessing the site? Was that from one of the representations or was that from our transport team?
It's, there's an objection from the transport team at this point in respect of the impacts on the highway and the safety. So that's been interpreted into a report. The applicant has certainly made a significant inroads in providing a large amount of extra information to try and overcome some of the queries and comments that have been made by the transport team. But certainly if you want some more elaboration of exactly what it is, I could ask Alistair to give some information for you.
Yeah, this might be best aimed at Alistair then, because on objection condition 3 on the paper, the transport raises that the over-provision of on-site parking and on-site road access, which seem to be in direct contradiction if we're saying we're worried about too many cars trying to access the site. Surely that would mean that the car parking on site is too limited and too small, not too big, surely.
Alistair, are you with us? Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hi.
Looking online. Hello, good afternoon.
Sounds good. The over-provision of parking relates to policy. So SPD 14 sets out maximum levels of parking allowable for restaurants, and this is far in excess of that maximum.
Could you be more specific and tell us what the numbers are?
You spotted my my bluff. Let me
Sorry, I'm put you on the spot there.
It's set out. So 10. The proposals are for 39, whereas 10 would be allowed.
Okay, so there's spaces for 39, but actually under planning law they would only need 10.
Yeah, SPD 14 allows for 10 spaces for a restaurant.
Okay, thank you. Does that help?
Of this size, that is, in this location.
No, if anything, my only concern is that surely if this was the case and that a direct concern from the transport team had been access to the site was causing traffic build-up, surely the answer to that would be to depart from SPD 14 to allow for a larger car park size, which is what's happened here. This feels like we're almost using the law to combat the problems we are throwing up at the site.
But traffic is getting there. There are, I don't know, I mean, my understanding is that if you've got 39 parking spaces, then it can attract an awful lot more vehicles than if you've only got 10. I'm not sure, maybe Alistair or Steve? Alistair? Or Chris?
Oh yeah, I was going to prove. But the other thing is if they're not accessing the car park, they're also the drive-through actual access the restaurant.
I'm really not sure. That hasn't answered my question. I don't know if Alistair can. I mean, if you've got more parking, I mean, yes, obviously there's a drive-through element, which is going to attract cars. Yeah. But if you've got more parking, that attracts more cars as well, doesn't it?
Oh, there we go. Hello. Yeah, the assessments in the transport assessment are based on the 39 parking spaces. So where we're looking at a build-up, we're looking at the build-up when there are 39 spaces, if that makes sense.
Can you switch your microphone off, Alistair?
Yeah, so it just really to clarify that at the moment, yes, there is a transport zone, there is an open provision, but it has been assessed on the basis of the amount of car spaces that has been submitted with the application. That leads into the whole conversation about the amount of movements that should be generated on site and the amount of demand for it. I've had discussions with Alistair about this, and there's also the issue, well, even if you reduce down the amount of car parking spaces, maybe down to a level which provides the provision which meets SPD, it still just means that you'll still end up with significant movement. So you could potentially make the situation worse than what we've already assessed, is that it's not suitable for the traffic stroke the highways at this point in time. Because if you have less car parking spaces on site, you then would most likely end up with even more backing onto the public highway. So in some ways, by either way, it ends up with a bad situation. You can make it slightly worse if you end up with less cars parking on site as well. But it has been assessed on the basis of what's actually been submitted.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. While we've got Alistair with us, as it were, I've pulled out an extract from one of your reports where you say that you recognise significant effort has been made on behalf of the applicant and that they brought forward amended proposals, but the report says the applicant's additional submissions do not yet demonstrate that the development will provide safe and suitable access for all users, or that there would not be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or a severe residual cumulative impact on the road network. So are you still of the opinion that this would have a negative impact on the local road network, please?
Okay, my two chief concerns here. One is the uncontrolled pedestrian crossing, which would be installed to provide pedestrian access to the restaurant. That's quite close to this signalised junction of Holmes Avenue. That's led to a lot of backwards and forwards where the normal method of assessing a junction wasn't deemed to be suitable. We need to see the interaction of the signalised junction with the proposed new pedestrian junction. And for that, we've used something called micro-simulation modelling. Whilst they provided the outputs of that modelling, they haven't told us clearly enough really what the inputs were. So we can see that they've got some acceptable outputs, but we haven't been able to assess how they got there. That's one thing. Where we're talking about too many queues, it's really the Holmes Avenue back to Payne. I've forgotten the name. Holmes Avenue back to Elm Drive. So what we're seeing is the queues go all the way from the Old Shoreham Road up Holmes Avenue back to Elm Drive at Peak and beyond that crossroad. So that's typically a basis on which we will classify something as a severe impact, where the impact of one junction goes back and beyond to the next previous junction. That's something that's been established at various appeals.
Is it appropriate, I don't know, maybe I can ask my lawyer, is it appropriate to ask the applicant why they haven't provided these inputs?
You can ask as clarification.
Yeah, would that be possible? Would you mind clarifying? If you have the answer, I don't know. Okay, great. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me now? So my name's Catherine Chapman. I'm Managing Director of ADL Traffic and Highways Engineering, and I have been the lead transport consultant on all the work that's been submitted with the application. So we have undertaken surveys of the road network, including queue surveys, pedestrian surveys. We've modelled the Holmes Avenue junction, the industrial access junction to the industrial estate to the south. And we've modelled the base situation. We've included traffic growth, and we've included the Sackville Road trading estate committed development, and we reviewed the Toads Valley committed development as well. So we have created a baseline traffic model, which has been modelled with industry standard software and micro-simulation modelling. All of the information in the micro-simulation modelling, including the pedestrians, the traffic surveys, the bus timetable information, that was actually all included in the back of the output report that the micro-simulation model has provided, and that's in Appendix 21 of my report. We were asked for a local model validation report on the 17th of April. That request came in, and we haven't had time to prepare that before the committee. The commentary from the Highway Authority was that we hadn't included pedestrians in the micro-simulation modelling. That's not true. Table 3.3 of Appendix 21 of my TA sets out the table where the pedestrian information at the signal crossing is included. So in terms of the parking provision, there are 3 accessible spaces, 2 EV, 2 grill bays for drive-through customers, and 4 courier bays. So that's 11 spaces just for operational requirements without any customer spaces. The parking demand for the restaurant is 29 vehicles. The Highway Authority have asked us to rigorously test the traffic impact. And so we have assessed the traffic based on surveys of McDonald's at Shoreham and Brighton Marina, which have 28 and 43 parking spaces. So the parking provision that we're proposing is not only in line with other existing McDonald's in Hove, it's sufficient to accommodate the demand. It's sufficient to allow us to turn a 16-metre Arctic on the site to deliver and still have parking for customers. And the maximum parking above maximum standards has been tested for a McDonald's restaurant in Norwich at appeal, and the inspector sided with McDonald's and stated that because the site was accessible by other modes, he didn't consider that the provision above maximum standards made the site unsustainable.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Quite a lot of information there.
Yeah.
How many articulated lorries do you have turning up on a regular basis?
Have I done?
No, that was my question to you. You just said about turning an articulated lorry in there. Do you have a lot of them turning up?
No, but obviously the restaurant has to be serviced. There needs to be frozen and ambient products.
Yes.
So Martin Brower at McDonald's sole distributor, they service the restaurants 3 to 5 times a week, and there's been a delivery management plan that has been submitted with the planning application. So there'd only be 1 delivery on any one day, and it would occur at quiet trading periods.
Okay, great, thank you. Lots and lots of questions. I just wanted to follow up with Councillor Robinson, because obviously it was your original question that started this. Did you want any further questions on it, or shall I move on? Okay, Councillor Theobald.
Yeah, I was just going to ask whether, somewhere I read that you're proposed to do a filter lane from the south going into here, and then also a pedestrian crossing. Have you got any plans, designs or anything for that?
You do. There is a proposal you provided.
Could you put your microphone on, please? Thank you.
There is a proposal to provide a right turn, modify the access into the site with a bell mouth, and provide a right turn lane facility into the site, so it would mirror the right turn lane that you've got for the industrial estate to the south. And as part of that design, which is in accordance with the design standards in Manual for Streets, we have included a uncontrolled pedestrian refuge. This would be located 93 metres from the existing signal crossing. the presenting officer, he did, when he had the site layout up, that showed the right turn proposals, so perhaps he could go back to that.
Yes, go ahead. Do you switch your microphone off, please, Catherine?
That doesn't show won't show the full extent of our highway works either, because we're proposing a yellow box at the Holmes Avenue junction on Old Shoreham Road, and we're also proposing minor modifications on Old Shoreham Road approaching the Sackville Road junction.
Could you switch your microphone off when you finish speaking, please?
Sorry.
I can't see on here how big the restaurant is. How many covers would that be?
Could you switch your microphone back on when you do speak? Thank you.
377 square metres. How many people, sorry? Would you like to know the traffic or?
No. How many covers?
Covers, 76.
You might not be able to know this, but there's a building on the diagram behind you, where the houses are. Is that something to do with you? But is it? Do you know what it is? Or perhaps the officer does.
Sorry, Councillor, which building are you referring to?
Yeah, when you've got the picture of this, and then there's, I think it says number 1. Just wonder what that was behind there. That's nothing to do with this, is it? But
no, it's not part of the application site. It's part of the wider industrial section.
I don't know what it is, though. Okay.
It's really important that everybody is able to hear everything. So could you please ask your question and then switch your microphone off so that we can then put another one on over here? Thank you.
Sorry, so just to reiterate, what's within the red line is part of the application site. The building to the north is not part of the site, nor is it proposed to be demolished. So that's part of the existing industrial estate, which will remain there.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett and then Councillor Van.
Actually, my question was asked, it was about highways, but I have got one question I'd like to ask. I've forgotten his name, I do apologise, the applicant. He said something about 400 metres being a relevant walking distance for users, and I believe it's 800 metres. I just wondered if someone could confirm that, please.
So, sorry, from our perspective, yeah, there's been, and I'm sure Katie from the public health side of things could elaborate on that, but there's been various studies which have been carried out, and this is within Brighton itself and also various other parts within the countries, that we've accepted that generally it's going to be about circa 800 metres would be a reasonable walking distance for people to be actually attending these types of operations, and also to some extent they will walk further. And I know Katie Stroke, the public health side, has done quite a lot of work on this in the past and also more recently, so maybe they can elaborate on that from our perspective and what we've considered in the report.
I'd like to bring Katie in if we could, because I'm wondering, I mean, we are a very active city, are we not? And I think that, you know, but are our measures allowed? I'm not sure. If you could explain a bit more, Katie, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So just to say that back in 2011, we did quite an extensive study here in the city, mapping but also directly observing the distance that secondary school pupils travelled during break and lunch times, but also in addition looked at their journeys to and from school. And certainly in lunch times in secondary schools, which are, as you know, all around the periphery of the city, young people were walking 800 metres, about 10 minutes walk to get to local shops and local parades. And that was something that then fed into the national evidence base. In fact, our study was quoted widely as supporting the case that frequently young people are walking further than 400 metres, 5 minutes.
Does that answer your question, Councillor? Councillor Nan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to an exchange, just for clarification, if that's okay. I think Alistair said that outputs were provided with no input being made available. I think you then asked, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. You then asked Catherine if those inputs could be provided. I think Catherine's answer ranged a bit, and I kind of lost track of what the answer was. So, Catherine, did you provide the inputs?
Could you please put your microphone on? Thank you. The modelling report did provide details of the inputs into the model, yes. But it is a separate report now that the Highway Authority have asked for on the 17th of April.
So can I just ask, Alistair, do you have outputs you trust? Outputs you trust. And do you have access to inputs that you understand?
We have some inputs, but not all the inputs. So there is a lot of inputs in the appendix, and that was part of my thanking the applicant for the amount of work that they have put in putting together this planning application. But a model validation report is quite standard to enable you to look exactly at how the modelling has been done. So it's not just about the inputs, it's about how the model's been calibrated, what is, for example, one of the things is a gap acceptance. So in the model, you can actually see little cars driving around a model world, and they're deciding whether to wait or whether to enter the road based on calibration of the model. That's the sort of level of detail that goes in the validation report that is not there in the input. The input might tell you how many cars per hour, but it won't tell you the gap acceptance. Notwithstanding that, we asked for videos. They were only presented at a late date, so that's the video outputs of the models, and there's various concerns there. Rightly said, there was pedestrians going across the signalised crossing, but what I'm particularly interested in is the uncontrolled crossing. And I had another look just before committee. I couldn't see a single pedestrian crossing, the uncontrolled pedestrian crossing within the model. So that's something that also I'd look to the validation report to see whether that was actually there in the model inputs. And I'm not sure about that.
Councillor Paris.
Can somebody, just for the sake of my ignorance, can you tell me, does anyone know how far away the local schools are from this? I mean, how far away would Blatchington Mill, for example, be, and Hove Park?
Half a mile.
What does that mean in metres? That's what I thought, but I don't know what half a mile translates to in metres. Sorry, I'm too old.
Yeah, so we've had a look at the schools in proximity, and I've done some measuring of them, of what would be the most likely and closest routes in respect of it. So there's a number of schools in the area, and Hove Park School, so this is walking through, not just taken as the bird flies or crow flies. So this would be, Hove Park would be about 740 metres away, and Goldstone Primary would be 761. Blatchington Mill School, it's about 876-ish. And then Aldrington Primary School is in excess of that, so that's 1,130 metres.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so, and how far then is the seafront, say, to there? Just to give me, I'm just trying to get some perspective, because the children do walk from King's, from Cardinal Newman, from Hove Park, from Blatch, all the way down across the Old Shoreham Road, down, because obviously most of them live, or a lot of them would live between the Old Shoreham Road and the seafront, if you like, in that. I live there, so big housing estate, which is the whole of, basically West Hove.
Absolutely, bear with me a second, and I'll just share my screen. So this is the application site here. So just in this area, you can see you've got some of the schools up here, some schools down to the south, and then the seafront. So you can see here, this is down heading towards Shoreham and the Western Lawns. So in terms of proximity, I haven't got all the schools to hand, but you can see in this area here, it's Blatchton Mill School. that's probably the one that's, if I look at my measurements, so Blackstone Mill, that's 876, so that's going from here to here. And then this is from the application down to the seafront. So from this red point to Blackstone Mill School, so from here to this area here, that's about 876 meters distant. And then as represented, you can see from here, that's to the seafront. So this is circa 900 meters, say, and then to the seafront, well, significantly further. If you want, I can do some measurements, but it's probably not worthwhile me spending time doing that while you carry on discussing.
No, that's fine. It was just really to get some idea, because the young people are walking from those schools all the way home because the buses are, not great. And they do pass in their hordes down Holmes Avenue and then further down into the whole of West Hove. I mean, my son used to walk from King's, which is at the furthest point away, all the way down to New Church Road, which is literally by the seafront. So that's, that's a significant walk every day.
I'm really sorry, Councillor Parrott. I'm going to have to just stop you there. I'm going to have a pause in the meeting just for a few minutes, if that's all right.
Okay, cool.
Hangleton would be the third, would suffer from health inequalities to the extent it's the third most health iniquitous place in Brighton and Hove, is that correct? It's the third most health, I'm sorry, Kate, isn't it? Sorry, it is, sorry. So Hangleton would be the third.
You're talking to the microphone so that we can all hear.
Sorry, I was just asking whether Hangleton was the third most health iniquitous, that's all, place in Brighton and Hove.
So I can't say whether it's the third most. I can certainly go away and confirm that. But I know, and it's certainly outlined in the public health response, that there are areas of significant deprivation in very close proximity to this site. Yeah.
And proliferation of fast food establishments exacerbate health inequalities. Is that a fair thing to say as well?
What I would say is that it's known that proximity and access to less healthy foods, which includes those that can be purchased from fast food outlets, are risk factors for not just obesity and overweight, for diet-related disease. And certainly those health risks are more prevalent in areas of deprivation. So in that way, they do exacerbate health inequalities.
Thank you, and I apologise for getting your name on. And I just wanted to double check that we are permitted to weigh those factors when considering to reject or. Thank you. Cheers.
Councillor Sheard.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to kind of touch back on the site usage plans quickly, because obviously DM11 talks about CP3 marks this down as employment land. DM11 means it has to meet specific requirements. And one of the ones that's really bothering me with this is one of the requirements of DM11 is that a site has to be easily adaptable for different businesses. But obviously the design of this building, from the very look and feel of it, screams a very specific use class that even sticking to that very strict sui generis that they've applied for couldn't easily change between one and another. So I just want to ask the applicant, how do you plan to actually make this easily adaptable if another business was to move in?
I'm just going to get some legal advice on that. Is that something that they're supposed to be able to answer?
Sorry, Chair, I don't think that the applicant can possibly answer that. I think you're looking at application before you, and that's what you're permitted to think, not what might happen in the future.
And I was more asking how this is being compliant with that requirement of DM11.
I think it might be prudent to ask the case officer.
Well, in respect of DM11, it will be a sui generis use, so it's going to be specific to a drive-through restaurant type, and it will be, obviously, the form of the building and the internal layout is going to be conducive towards those. So it's going to be, if they wanted to, if somebody else at a point in the future, let's say this application was approved, and at some point somebody wanted to operate something differently there, they're going to have to come back to planning permission for that use, and also they would most likely have to carry out some internal, maybe external alterations, which may also need planning. So, yeah, how conducive is DM11? That's really a judgment for you to make, but certainly because this is a sui generis use, it will be, they're going to have to apply for planning permission for any different uses they want to put forward in the future.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask the applicant a quick question about jobs on site. So you said there'll be 100 to 120 people employed on site. I'm kind of familiar with McDonald's hiring practices. That's not criticism. I'm just saying, they don't intend to provide full-time jobs. So I was just wondering what the full-time equivalent job number will be. 60. Was it in the report? Thank you. Sorry. 62.
I have a figure of 120 in total and 30 are full-time, and the rest combined make up another 32. Have I got that right?
I think the officer report's correct on that front, so yeah, no dispute on that.
Apologies, I missed that.
My turn. I'm sorry to be a real nuisance, Alistair, but I'm struggling a little bit here with a couple of things. I'm struggling with the fact that Catherine's told us that we asked them for information on the 17th, and they said that they hadn't had time to produce it. Is that how you've interpreted things?
From my perspective, I received a lot of very detailed information throughout the whole process, and I had the same impression. I was receiving a lot of information to review very close to report writing stage. So, my letter of the 17th, my letter of the 17th, where I did ask for that, was in response to a letter that I received, I don't know, probably like the week before or something. So that's when I received the videos and the information that I'd asked for. But was that on the 26th of March? So I asked for further information on the 26th of March and received it, and then was responding to that.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask Stephen then? Because I mean, this was already in the diary by then. Is that? It's difficult because for somebody to say, "Oh well, we haven't been given enough time," it's like, did you not know that we were having a planning meeting 3 weeks later? I don't know.
Is that a question for me?
All I can see is the APCO has been with us for a significant period of time, and it's been well over a year now. I think it was back in January of the application of last year that it was originally made. And the applicant has been very forthcoming with providing extra information, but a lot of that information has taken significant periods of time to actually come forward. So I agreed with the agent that we would extend the time for determination repeatedly, and we granted numerous extensions of time to allow the evidence to be put forward to support the case that the applicant was making, that it wouldn't have any impact in respect to the transport assessment. And obviously that's an ongoing process that's been carried out over the last nearly year and a half. And Alice has been responding to the information when he's been receiving it. Sometimes because of the complexity of that information, there's been significant periods where nothing has been forthcoming and then it's arrived. And I gave the applicant a clear deadline of when we would be actually going to planning committee, and made it clear that it would be the last extension time that we provided, and this was information that was needed to support their case. They've sent that information in. Alice has responded. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to get the full information for the response that they want to in the way they wanted to Alice before that. So it's not as though we've been giving them a very tight timeline and saying, well, it has to be done within 5 months. We've granted numerous extensions of time. But
could I also ask Catherine, you mentioned Paul Fallow, who's obviously not here. Right. I'm curious as to, I just want a bit of clarity really. You said that Paul Fallow had given you some guidance on what kind of, was it traffic calming measures are we talking about?
It's a minor modification to the approach to the Sackville Road junction to... I
can't work out why that junction's relevant to your junction.
Part of the reason for the additional, the delay in our responses was that we were asked to survey 3 additional junctions approaching the Sackville trading estate, Sackville Road junction. So we had to then survey those junctions, get all the signal information, and then model those junctions. And that was a significant proportion of additional work that we had to do as our part of our February 2026 TA. So obviously that took time, because we had to commission those surveys, analyse them, do all the modelling. We approached Paul Fallows because we just wanted to have a chat about the LINSIG modelling that we were doing of those junctions. And as part of that discussion, one, to make sure that he was happy with the approach we were taking to the modelling, and that we had all the correct information for those 3 junctions as a network. And as part of it, we discussed the traffic impact that we were having on those junctions of between 60 and 30 vehicles two-way, and said, look, it's a relatively small amount of traffic. if we know it's going to be at or close to capacity because we've looked at the Sackville Trading Estate TA, what would you do? And that was the suggestion he gave to us, and we took it forward and modelled it.
Okay, great, that's helpful, thank you. And then I also wanted to ask, you mentioned about the two other sites that you've got, and you mentioned the number of parking spaces.
Yes.
But I'm struggling to sort of make a fair comparison here because I don't really know how they compare site size-wise. Could you remind me what the parking allocations are for the other two?
So the average floor area of those two sites is 315 square metres,
okay.
But they have 95 covers, so they're slightly smaller than the proposal, which is 377, but they've got slightly more seats.
More
and
covers,
on average, they've got 36 parking spaces, and we're proposing 39.
You've just given me an average, but one of them was 49, right?
One of them so Shoreham has 28, and Brighton Marina has 43.
43. Okay.
But Brighton has more. Brighton Marina's got 108 seats, so it's got more seats.
Okay, well that helps me mentally just get a picture. Thank you.
Mm.
Councillor Parrott, while I'm cogitating.
But they're completely different sites. I was a bit confused about the relevance of them because they are, they're completely different types of location, types of traffic flow. We've got horrendous problems on the Old Shoreham Road. As we know, it doesn't take very much for that road to completely snarl up already as it is. We put in a lovely bike lane, which completely screwed the traffic even in COVID. Roadworks recently have really, messed with the traffic. It really doesn't take very much for the flow of traffic along that road to be messed up. So we're talking about putting increased traffic in through an already very densely populated, very, very busy road. I don't really understand the comparison with somewhere like Shoreham or the Brighton Marina. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
What's your question?
Well, my question is why the comparison with there? Why we're not doing a comparison with somewhere like the Purley Way or somewhere that's a much busier road that would actually give us a better indication of the impact of traffic?
Because that was what your highway authority asked me to do. They are the ones that chose these as the comparables to this site.
Just in relation to that then, and this is probably best answered by Alistair, do we know what the traffic impact is from the site at Goldston Retail Park? 'Cause that is not much further up on Old Shoreham Way, is it?
Currently the Burger King drive-through, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, we do. I pause because I was thinking we haven't had a planning application there, but we may have had one. But I couldn't tell you, I'm afraid.
And also that is slightly different by nature because it's a whole industrial zone, isn't it, with a massive car park. I mean, we're talking about many retail outlets.
Retail, not an industrial.
Sorry, retail outlet, yeah. Sorry, yeah, okay. Okay, I just have one teeny more question, and this is for you, Alistair, sorry. I'm just trying to picture it all with the filter lane and the pedestrian crossing and the yellow box. It is a very busy stretch of road, that stretch of road. Do you, even with the filter lane, is that going to solve problems, solve the issue? I don't know.
Personally, I think what the evidence has shown is that the yellow box scheme at the bottom of Holmes Avenue is something we consider very sensible and might be brought forward with or without the McDonald's, but not necessarily. They're not completely. You can't just put one in without making sure it's going to work properly. The scheme slightly troubled by the proposal for the Paul Finance has proposed, but I haven't spoken to him about that. And like I said, we have secured funding to do a proper study of that crossroads and make it safe for pedestrians and cyclists. So these works would potentially be temporary if they came before that study and working up of options for the crossroads. The chief concerns for me, and the ones that I've highlighted in my responses, are that the queues on Holmes Avenue itself, and also the uncontrolled pedestrian crossing, which I keep highlighting and hasn't really appeared in this discussion. But Old Shoreham Road does have pedestrian deaths from pedestrian crossing, both at signalised crossings and sort of gap seeking where there isn't a proper crossing. When we say the particular crossing that's proposed here is like an island. So you go to the island when you see a gap, and then you go across to the next when you see a gap. And that's been really my focus for all of the micro simulation that I've wanted, is how does that interact with the signalised crossing at the bottom of Holmes Avenue. That's what I've been focused on, and I've set a very high bar because of the road safety risks.
I appreciate that, thank you. Are there any more questions? Councillor Sheard.
One very quick one, and I think the applicant will be best to answer this. The look and feel of the building, that is protected by trademark and trade dress, isn't it?
Yes, to a degree. Yes, there's very much a sort of corporate or preferred finishes, I suppose. It's a subject to planning control, obviously, but yes, that's a preferred look.
Shall we move to debate? Councillor Nan, why don't you start us off? Thank you. Do feel free to. Thank you for answering the questions. Do go and take your seats.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll be voting to support the office's rejection of this. And the reason I'll be doing that is I believe that this would exacerbate existing health inequalities in Hangleton. And I get that there's a correlation between fast food outlets and health inequalities rather than a causal relationship. But I think one thing to be mindful of is that Hangleton would qualify by most metrics as a food desert. There's a very poor offer of food in Hangleton. I don't mean to disparage Hangleton. I live there, and Hangleton till I die. But and like I said, I was just reading, it does qualify as a food desert. I think to introduce a fast food restaurant into this environment would have a negative impact on the already quite ferocious health inequalities that exist in that area. And so that line of reasoning, and I've checked in the ability to do that, means I'll be supporting the officers.
Thank you. Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Chair. But the report says there's a loss of employment space, but this will employ over 100 mostly young people. The schools are not exactly next door. I know that there will be some walking past to go home or going there, but and as Councillor Shanks has actually pointed out, I didn't know it was healthy eating or that was a planning matter. But McDonald's do have a healthy option, like chicken salad and healthy wraps and fruit salad. Even my 102-year-old mother likes the one at Holmbush. She occasionally goes there and likes it. The 39 parking spaces I thought was quite sensible. I just wondered if 10 probably might not be enough, as explained already. It says in the report this is not the city centre, but where would you put a drive-through in our city centre? You don't like cars in there at all, so I can't see that. Opening hours have been reduced quite a bit. It's not 24 hours. They'd have litter pickers, and there's actually residential properties that near this, not really near this site. Some people have said, all right, there's some way away. They really are. So
sorry, please, if somebody's speaking.
Some people have even said all you get is dead people in the cemetery opposite. But if the road system is made safe and there's a filter lane and pedestrian crossing, I think I'm inclined to support it. I think if it's made safe, then it'd be a good thing. Thank you.
Councillor Cattell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to support the officer's recommendation because it's contrary to policy, as simple as that. And there's been no justification by the applicants, and no no justification for why they are quite happy to put, to go against council policy, and they haven't given any open debate or open information about the marketing of the building. And yeah, we've just lost a lot of employment space because of a building in the town centre, which is not fit for purpose anymore. So we are going to need to replace some of that floor space. I don't care who does it, but it is is part of what we need. We don't need another fast food establishment. And yeah, I understand what Councillor Theobald was saying about, not wanting something like this in the city centre. That's part of the national, it's part of the national planning policy framework. So, and we are bound by those policies. We are bound by national policy. We're bound by local policy. And there's not one word in this report that would justify departing from national and local policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I just can't get out of my head the safeguarded employment space. And as Councillor Cattell had said, it's in our policy. We have dire need of employment space in the city. So for that reason, as well as the reasons that Councillor Nann has put forward about health inequality, I couldn't vote for it. So I will be supporting the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll support the recommendation of the officers. I just, particularly on the public health grounds, really. I mean, in terms of the road, it's just a dangerous road, and actually it needs slowing down, and I don't accept that was the traffic, that the cycle lanes, when they were there, were a problem, actually. That road, I go along there a lot, and it's always very busy, and I think we do need to look at it more strategically in terms of what else might be on there. I think it would cause problems having that, but we also need to look at, what other safe crossings, if we've got a lot of kids walking about, how are they crossing the road, whether whether they're going to McDonald's or not is a bit irrelevant, really. So I'd support it, but I think, with the grounds, in terms of traffic, that's sort of our fault for having that dangerous road there, really. So we need to look at it more.
Thank you. Councillor Parrott.
So I think it's important to say that I agree the road is dangerous. It's a nightmare to cross, and it's also a nightmare to turn out of Holmes Avenue if you're coming down and trying to get across that road there at any point. I do think that having a fast food restaurant there, Carol, it is. Right, so stop that. But if you have a fast food restaurant there and you have, there you have lots of children crossing there at any one given time. They all come out of school at roughly the same time, so you're going to have an increased presence at a given time. And so it would make it, I think, significantly more dangerous. I'd like to point out that McDonald's don't serve salads anymore and don't have healthy food. And I think that, we do have a major problem with children crossing that road already. And I think that the presence of a fast food restaurant like this would exacerbate that. And for that reason, predominantly, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sheard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think a lot of people who watch this at home and who view this from the gallery will not have spent much time around planning committees, and will not know the amount of times that we sit here and we hear about how building one extra house on the road is going to make the traffic irreplaceable, and how often we hear these kinds of arguments. So, to an extent, sometimes you do begin to get a little blind to these issues coming up because you're so used to seeing them being applied to every single application. And so when I was walking in today, there was a part of me thinking, are we purely just playing the fun police with this and taking out and just taking away something people like to do for the sake of it? But we sat here today, we've had a discussion, we've heard from the officers, this is departing from our maximum number of parking spaces, and even with that increased parking space, there's not enough space to get all the cars that will be visiting the site on a road that is already extremely busy, as anyone who drives along it will know. It's not fun to get across at the best of times. We've heard from this is also in CP3 as a protected industrial and employment site. And one of the requirements, especially in City Plan 2, is that this needs to be adaptable and changeable as different businesses come and go and flow through. And that is stated in DM11. Yet, as we've heard from the applicant today, the building they're going to put in is under trade dress, meaning no other business will be able to use it without tearing it down and starting again. So it's not easily adaptable. The more I've heard about this today, the more I've actually come to appreciate the reasons we have a lot of these limitations in our planning policy, and I think on those bases I am quite happy to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Pickett?
Yeah, I quite agree with mostly with what everybody else has said. I think in terms of public health and road safety issues, this application may make things worse. And also, I think that we need to safeguard the protected industrial site for the use that it currently is used for, and not change its use.
Councillor Murphy?
Nothing more to add. I'll be voting with the officer's recommendation. I see nothing in the application that calls me to go against our planning guidelines and policies and things. So I'll be voting with the officers.
Thank you. I'll be voting with officers as well. The use of space is obviously a really important thing. It's part of our, it's a protected site. Unhealthy lifestyles is obviously a huge issue. The transport, I suppose I just can't get over the idea. The idea of just a little island in the middle of that very fast dual carriageway, and with a whole bunch of kids because it's on so many different school pathways, it just frightens the living daylights out of me, and it is really dangerous already, and I just think it would be even worse. So I'm afraid, I'm not afraid actually, I'm quite convinced that I'll be supporting officer's recommendation as well. Shall we go to a vote? All those in favour of the officer's refusal? And all those against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So there was 9 for the officer recommendation for the refusal, 0 against and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for your time for joining us this afternoon. Thank you. Should we take a break for 10 minutes? Thank you. Apologise for breaking the home rule. Right, let's move on to our next application. Rebecca, over to you. Thank you. Sorry, when you're ready, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, councillors. We are here for BH 2026-00393, 19 New England Street. The application is for a change of use from a Class C3 dwelling house to a sui generis large HMO, so large house in multiple occupation, including associated internal alterations. This is a map of the city showing the application site just behind London Road. And this is the existing location plan, showing number 19 within the terrace on New England Street. An aerial photo of the application site, again showing 19 New England Street here. There's 3D aerial photo of the site showing the 4-storey property that is 19 New England Street. Photographs of the front and rear elevations of the property. They will remain as existing because there are no external alterations. Some internal photographs of the layout as existing. So this is the living and dining room on the ground floor. There is a separate kitchen. The first floor rear bedroom, which is shown on the plans as a single bedroom. And then there are 3 double bedrooms proposed within the layout as well. And this photograph is an example of one of the larger double occupancy rooms. This happens to be the first floor front room. The existing and first floor plans are shown here. So there are 2 bedrooms on the first floor, and the ground floor is all sort of communal living space. And then there are 2 further bedrooms on the second floor with further communal space and a roof garden on the third floor. As proposed, there would be no changes to the ground floor. There would be some minor alterations at first floor to move the dividing wall between the 2 bedrooms and to rearrange the bathroom access. Oh, sorry, the rearranged bathroom access is at the second floor, and that is the only change on that floor where there are 2 bedrooms proposed. The overall occupation for the building is 7 persons across 4 bedrooms. So that's 2 people in the 3 double bedrooms and then 1 person in the single bedroom. Each of the double bedrooms are 11.5 square metres and the single bedroom is 7.5 square metres. This is covered in paragraph 8.12 in the report. We have received objections from 7 people, and they have cited the following reasons. And the key considerations for this scheme are if the principle of a new HMO in this location complies with the density tests in policy CP21 and DM7, whether the standard of accommodation for the layout complies with the spatial standards referenced in policies DM1 and DM7, the impacts on neighbouring amenity, and any transport and parking matters that may arise as a result of the application. So, in conclusion, we support the principle of development as HMO concentrations are within the policy thresholds. So that's less than 10% for policy CP21 and less than 20% for policy DM7. In this particular instance, there are 7.06% of properties are HMO within 50 metres of the application site and 2.07 within the wider neighbourhood area. We consider that the standard of accommodation is acceptable. 3 of the bedrooms are suitable for double occupancy and 1 for single occupancy. The communal areas on the ground and first floors are sufficient in size to support a maximum occupation of 7 persons. So the spatial requirements set out in DN7 are met. The impacts on neighbour amenity are not considered to be unacceptable in relation to policy DM20, and the proposal is in a sustainable location with opportunities for public transport and cycle routes nearby. It's in a controlled parking zone, so overspill parking is not expected to cause an issue, and if it did, it could be controlled by existing mechanisms. We don't consider that additional trip generation would increase to the point that it could impact the highway. Cycle parking will be provided, and further details are sought by condition on that. There will also be, or there is also recommended, a condition for maximum occupancy of 7 persons and retention of the internal layout. The recommendation is for approval subject to those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have Councillor Macleay online?
Yes, sorry, Chair. Councillor Macleay is unable to make the meeting, so I'm going to read a speech out for them. Okay? Thank you very much. And I'll time myself. Thank you. Chair, members of the committee, I want to request that this application for 19 New England Street is scrutinised very carefully before any decision is made. I recognise that the officer's report concludes the proposal technically meets the current HMO policy thresholds. 6% HMO concentration within 50 metres is below the 10% ward threshold, and the wider neighbourhood figure is also below the citywide limit. However, policy compliance should not be the end of our consideration. Planning decisions must also weigh lived impacts on communities, housing need, the quality of accommodation at being proposed. 7 local residents have objected, and their concerns are consistent and reasonable. New England Street is a dense residential street with families and young children living immediately adjacent. Noise, disturbance and high turnover are already sensitive issues in this location, particularly given the street's proximity to Brighton Station. This street has already borne years of disruption from short-term holiday lets with stag and hen parties. While I welcome the move away from the holiday use, I question why this property could not return to a much-needed family home. Oh, sorry, I just lost that. I also concern about the that leads to a crucial point. This is a 4-bedroom house. 4-bed family homes are in severe shortage across Brighton and Hove. I strongly urge the committee to reflect on whether losing another one is really the city's best interest. We should be protecting this type of house wherever possible. I'm also concerned about the proposed occupancy level. This is a tall but narrow 4-storey property with it's moved again. Sorry about this. Now, 4-storey property with a small kitchen accommodating 7 people risks creating cramped conditions and pressure on shared facilities. The report notes no changes to the communal living, which is welcome, but that must be firmly secured. 7 occupants would almost certainly require some bedrooms, to be double occupied. That detail deserves much closer scrutiny. We must not approve a scheme that risks poor living conditions for tenants themselves. The kitchen of the property is small. The communal living room is large and should be protected as a communal area, not retrospectively converted into a bedroom. Finally, parking. Although described as car-free, we all know that does not mean residents will not own cars. This address is not eligible for parking permits within the controlled parking zone. Any future residents would need to rely on a long-term parking off London Road. This must be made absolutely clear from the outset, because unmanaged parking pressure will fall directly into nearby streets. While this application may sit within policy thresholds, the committee must look at beyond the numbers. Community impacts, housing need, living conditions and community challenge on the change on this street are justified as a much more cautious approach. I urge you to scrutinise this proposal closely, whether refusal, reduction occupancy or stronger condition would be better served residents and with citywide. Why not rent this house out as a 4-bedroom house? Thank you. I apologise for the mistake.
Can we have Toby Deacon here, please? Good afternoon, Toby. Yes, you've found the button already, and you've got 3 minutes to speak when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. My name is Toby Deacon. I'm the planning consultant working on behalf of the applicant. Most of the main points I'm raising in this speech have already been covered in detail by our case officer, so I'll just run through them once more. In terms of principle, policy CP21 and policy DM7 set a very clear framework for addressing HMOs in the city. Within 50-metre radius, only 7.06% of properties are in an HMO use. This has come to be below the 10% threshold in the wider area. The figure is just over 2%, well below the 20% limit. The proposal does not create a sandwiching effect, nor does it result in any continuous frontage of HMOs. The principle of an HMO use in this location is therefore acceptable in principle. Moving to matters relating to residential amenity, the proposed development does not include any new extensions or any additional bedrooms to what's existing. Therefore, there are no physical changes that would result in material harm from overlooking, loss of privacy, or reduction in daylight and sunlight to adjoining neighbours. We do understand that HMOs have slightly different patterns of occupation, but as per the officer's recommendation, this alone is not sufficient to create material harm justifying refusal, particularly in an area where HMO concentrations are demonstrably low and the size of the property is so large in relation to the proposed occupancy. In addition, the property is subject to mandatory HMO licensing, which brings with it robust management controls, including standards relating to occupancy, waste and general operation. Separate environmental health legislation also remains in place to address any statutory noise nuisance should it arise. Each bedroom meets the required size for its intended occupancy in line with the NDSS, and there's appropriate provision of bathrooms on each floor, good quality communal space, and access to outdoor amenity areas, including an existing roof terrace. The layout therefore provides a good standard of living for future occupants, fully in line with policy DM1 and DM7. On transport matters, the site is in a highly sustainable location, and the Council's Transport Consultee has confirmed that no additional parking is required. New England street development is car-free, so there are nearby multi-storey car parks offering permit options for residents on an annual basis. The site benefits from excellent access to Brighton Station, close by bus routes, and local services such as the nearby Sainsbury's supermarket. Cycle parking is secured by condition, and no objections have been raised by Council's transport team. In summary, this proposal complies with the local development plan in full. It provides a good standard of accommodation and does not give rise to any material harm to the neighbours. The officer's recommendation to grant is well founded, and we respectfully ask that members support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who would like to start with questions? Councillor Shanks. We're changing the use class, but is there how much internal changes are there to the existing property?
Let me just share the plans again for you. There aren't very many at all. It's a slight movement to a wall on the first floor and a slight movement with a door to ensure that minimum bedroom spaces are met. And then...
Follow up that. So if for example, if you have this use class, if you do decide to let it to a family, you're allowed to do that under the terms of this, or does it have to be an HMO?
So this is not a C4 HMO. So if it was a smaller HMO, so if it was up to 6 people, there would be a permitted development right to turn it back into a family dwelling. As it's a sui generis HMO, that right doesn't exist, but I can't see any reason why we as a local planning authority wouldn't support that. The amount of intervention into the property in terms of those internal alterations isn't something which would prohibit
a family moving in there. I think if you look at the layout, you've got living and dining room on the ground floor, you've got a kitchen, you've got the rear yard access, that's all unchanged. At the first floor, you've got some very minor movements of walls, but essentially the overall number of bedrooms is remaining the same, the number of bathrooms is remaining the same. There are minor interventions to walls. Then again, on the second floor, there's your 2 bedrooms, the communal space on the top floor, which leads out onto the roof garden, is retained as communal space. The application is subject to condition 4, which secures the layout for the HMO. So within the HMO use, they couldn't turn any of the bedroom, any part of the communal area into a bedroom without prior consent from the local planning authority.
Councillor Theobald? Me querying the 7 by 5 bedroom, that's very small, but I presume that's a single one there. But and it's the living, somebody said the living space wasn't that big, but is it big enough to have 7 people?
Yes, so taking the question about the bedroom first, the single occupancy bedroom is the 7.5 square metre bedroom on the first floor, coupled with that is the minimum space standard for a single occupancy room is 7.5 square metres, so that is met. There wouldn't really be good grounds to say that that is too small, and the permission as a whole would also be subject to the condition about the overall number of occupiers at 7. So if you take the other 3 bedrooms, which are doubles, plus that, to make that room a double occupancy room, put 2 people in there, would breach other conditions within the consent, which are there to ensure a good standard of accommodation for all. Regarding the communal space, the living and dining room is 25.2, the kitchen is 9 square metres, and then the communal space on the 3rd floor is 12 square metres. So that's how much internal communal space you've got, and that does exceed the 4 square metres per person for a 7-person occupancy. So if it was rigid, the minimum that they could provide for this property at this level of occupation of 7 people would be 28 square metres. So they are some way above that.
Councillor Pickett.
Thanks. On my notes, I've got that I know this is an HMO for a maximum of 7 people, but I've got written down potentially 8, and I think that was in the briefing. Can you just confirm it is just for 7 people?
Yeah, I have assessed it on the basis that there are 7 bed spaces. That's how it's been discussed in the planning statement, and that is ultimately what would be granted because of condition 3. There is a maximum occupation condition.
Councillor Patel.
Hello, thank you, Chair. In your photographs, which I'm guessing you must have taken when you did a site visit, yeah? I mean, it looks as though it's set out as an Airbnb, which, you know, like those 3 beds in a double room and 2 beds in a single room, and all those couches in that, you know, in the living dining room. I'm just wondering, how can we make sure that it doesn't get used as an Airbnb again? Because it looks, I'm just thinking about the reality of 3 couples and a single person, you know, sharing a house together, and the reality of that, you know, I just can't see it happening myself. But how will we stop this happening? Oh, sorry.
So yes, I am aware that there has been some Airbnb short-term holiday let usage at the property, but I haven't acknowledged that in my assessment because I haven't found that to be in any way the lawful use of the property. in terms of how we could stop it or prevent it. I'm not really sure that we could, but we could respond and investigate any instances.
Sorry, Chair, could I, another question? Oh, Chris, you're going to come in.
Yeah, I was just going to say it'll be the same as any application or site where if we get complaints or we see it's on Airbnb sites. Yes, we can investigate again, but I think the applicant is aiming to implement unlawful use as opposed to the Airbnb use, which is occurring at the moment. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, Chair, can I just ask another question? You refer to another application which is under consideration, and I looked at that, and it's by same applicant, same agent, both submitted on the same day. And I'm only guessing here, that you didn't bring them to committee because there are only 4 objections on the last one, and Councillor McClay didn't call it in. So anyway, just interesting as to why you didn't bring them both to committee. Would have been helpful for us, I think.
So yes, you are correct. 4 objections have been received for another application. I have acknowledged in my report that there is another application actively under consideration by the planning department, but we have to determine applications in accordance with the scheme of delegation. So this one has met referral to planning committee, another application hasn't. So that's why it's not here.
I'd just like to also point out that if this application were to be approved, then the assessment of the other application would be on the basis of this application as an HMO. So it would potentially alter the calculations, but we have looked at that, and it would still be under the threshold for.
Yes, sorry. So if the local planning authority does receive more than one application, it could be by independent applicants within the same 50-metre radius at the same time. You do look at both, but they are independent applications with independent recommendations, and in this instance, independent routes to a decision.
Councillor Robinson. Thank you. So just kind of going back on what you just said about the other application, is the other application for the same property or a different property? Then I have another question.
Different property, same street. It's in 3.2 of my report.
So I don't remember every word of your report. But are we to kind of assume that the applicant has put this planning application in because they seem to be their intention is to kind of formalise their arrangements, i.e. they need planning permission to be able to rent out the property as an HMO, and whereas previously they were probably just using it as a holiday let? Question 1. Question 2, if this was to pass, and I'm sorry if you said that a minute ago, if this was to pass, would you then review, would it tipped over the balance of how many HMOs in the area? Presumably you'd have to take that into account with the other application.
Yes, so I think the first question was about why the applications come in. I'm not the applicant. I can't tell you what their motivations are for that. They have applied for a HMO. That's what we are considering. That's what the report is about. And then on the question about calculations, yes, if other decisions are made,
calculations would be reviewed at the point of decision.
Can I just piggyback on Councillor Robinson's question? I'm sorry, I haven't seen the paragraph that you've mentioned this in your report either. I apologise. How many, is that an HMO as well?
So the paragraph I refer to is about the planning history. So I have noted that there is a concurrent application. The local planning authority has not made a decision on that application at the moment, so it's still under consideration. If this application is determined first, which is in all likelihood what's going to happen, then the result of this application would be carried forward and calculated within the calculations for the application that's yet to be determined.
Yes.
So you don't get...
Thank you. Sorry. Yep. Pennies have dropped. I apologise. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
You're not avoiding anything.
Yeah. More questions? Would you like to move to debate? Who would like to start us off? Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a shame we didn't see pictures of the bedrooms, how they would be, hopefully. Like you've got in the single room, you've got 2 beds in it, and then the other 3-bedded room should be a double room. But obviously we hope that there'd be the correct size beds in there. Of course, it's better than a holiday let or a party place or whatever. But of course, it'd be a lot better if it had gone back to a family home. But this is what we have in front of us. It's difficult to turn down these HMOs because we don't win many of the appeals on these. So I'm supposed to be voting for it.
Councillor Parrott. Oh, I'm so sorry, Councillor Cattell.
Thank you. Actually, Carol, there you can see quite clearly on the drawings that the way their bedroom's going to be laid out, with the 3 doubles and 1 single. I remain concerned that this could end up by stealth being an Airbnb holiday let or whatever we like to call it. But policy dictates that we can't refuse it. I just hope that the neighbours keep an eye on it, and if there's any hint of an Airbnb or holiday let, then I hope we will come down on them with the full force of the enforcement team, such as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Parrott. Councillor Parrott.
I guess I have similar concerns to Councillor Cattell, particularly actually with regard to the living space. Having son and daughter-in-law, soon-to-be daughter-in-law, who are just about to leave university, I'm very aware that living space often gets turned into bedrooms by stealth. So I think there's a lot of, by stealth that could happen here. But, it is what it is. I would like to say, I know we need 4-bedroom houses, but we also do need, and I know this is something that Councillor Sheard has raised on a number of occasions, we also do need in the city accommodation for young people who are looking to stay after uni or whatever, who need rooms to rent, and so HMOs are not necessarily a bad thing in their own right. I would just obviously hope that soundproofing and that their neighbourliness, but that's up to them.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with both Councillors Parrott and Cattell. It's not an ideal situation. I've looked at the room sizes, but I think if it is what I'm imagining or hoping, that this is the landlord's way of formalising things a little bit more, and it won't be a holiday let anymore, which is what the assumption was. I think that's a good thing to be providing long-term or medium to long-term homes for sharers, and as we know from our very own Councillor Sheard, the city needs them, and other people, of course. So I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Over to our very own Councillor Sheard.
I feel like I'm turning into a bit of a celebrity in these. I think I've not made it no secret about previous planning committees. I live in an HMO. I'm a young person who struggles to find housing stability in a city with rising costs, and trying to fight for these spaces is pain in the bum sometimes. I've compared it to, I think the best way to say it is, you don't get to choose where you live in the city. Where you live in the city chooses you, because you just go for whatever house when you get to move, and a lot of the time that's out of your hands. you have to move there. I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of good things going for this. I think the double rooms, having specified double rooms is quite a good thing, and having the HMO capacity for those double rooms is quite good, because it means that people who are starting relationships, who are perhaps spending their first couple of nights together and looking to actually move in together in the future, have somewhere to live and have that stability, and don't feel that their relationship is going to have forced them to move house, which I think is quite a good thing, and will perhaps mean that in the future they will need a family home, but right now this is perfect for them. I think the idea that this is bad because this is a limiting factor because they won't have access to car parking spaces, it's a bit misleading, because from my experiences of HMOs and a lot of people living in HMOs, they don't have cars anyway. They are much more likely to be reliant on public transport, which for a place with no parking space, this is going to suit them down to the ground, especially with its inner city location close to the train station. I also think that the rooms not being of minimum size, which is so refreshing in the HMO applications we get. Well, we're so used to seeing rooms that barely squeak over the minimums, and here even the smallest rooms are 1-2 metres over the minimums, is quite nice to see. So this is actually somewhere that people would want to live. This is somewhere people can set up. So I think all in all, as far as HMO applications go, this is pretty much as best as we can get it.
Councillor Pickett, Councillor
Yeah, I do agree. I think it is a bit sad that we're losing a family home of 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house. But I can see where it's going. I think it's quite reassuring to know that if because there aren't going to be so many physical changes to the actual building, that if it was needed to be changed back to a family home, that would be easily done. So I probably will vote for this, even though I'm not so keen on HMOs.
Sorry, Councillor Shack.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been an Airbnb for a while. I think I've, been up that street a few times to my one. So I think it's quite good that they're actually coming under legislation that we've got, and we can monitor them, how many people are there. And I mean, I'm never sure about we haven't got enough enforcement officers probably, but I'm sure, local people who've been looking at this will let us know, and we can let you know. I mean, this was actually built as a 4-bedroom house, wasn't it? So I think actually it is quite good accommodation for HMOs. I mean, some of them are, they're old houses that have been sort of cobbled together from adding bedrooms and taking away living space. And actually this was designed like this, so I think it's quite a good place for people, whatever stage of life they're in.
Thank you. Any more? I'm inclined to vote for it. I'm concerned about these things being monitored, particularly because in my ward, short-term lets are, causing a lot of issues. I don't know how easy it is, because I presume there's not enough spare capacity in terms of staffing to check on short-term let websites. So maybe we, as Councillor Cattell says, we have to rely on the neighbours, that if they're not good neighbours, then we will hear via another route, or the ward councillors will hear via another route. So, but I will be voting in favour of it. Are we ready to go to a vote? All those in favour?
Thank you, Chair. You unanimously agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you having technical difficulties over there? Sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. All right. Do we have Oliver?
I'm not going to.
Oh, you're going to do it. Excellent. Okay. Right. Let's move on to the final application of the day, which Chris is going to present for us. Thank you.
Okay, this is an application at 8 Windmill Drive, PA 2026 00158. The application is for the creation of a first floor with balcony within a new roof extension. and also the erection of a single-story side extension with undercroft, a stall for the garden, and creation of a new rear terrace and revised fenestration. And the site is to the north of the city on Windmill Drive. Here's the existing site location plan, so to the south of Windmill Drive. This is the proposed block plan. So this extension on the side will be new. This is a single-storey extension replacing the existing garage, and then there'll be a 2.5 metre extension to the rear. This is the aerial photo of the site. You can see we're just south of the Southlands National Park. Another 3D aerial photo of the site. This is the aerial photo, the 3D aerial of the site from the north. You can see this is a single-storey bungalow to the side, and you've got a two-storey house adjoining. This is the front elevation of the site, and some more photos. These are the front elevation, and then we've got some photos to the rear. This is the views from the rear of the property as existing. So this is the existing garden and ground floor plan. And then this will be the new ground floor plan with a terrace here, which is actually set under the new extended first floor. And here's the first floor. So you've got 2 bedrooms, and then you've got a balcony within the roof space. So you can see that the roof comes out, and then the balcony is inset, and then you've got another terrace which is also inset at ground floor level. So here's the existing elevations, and here's the proposed elevations. So you've got an increase in height of just under 2 metres, with the eaves stay the same. So you've got the what's happening really is the pitch of the roof increasing, and then a 2.5 metre extension at the rear, and then you've got a terrace inset into the roof there, and also inset on the ground floor. And you've got an image here of the elevation of the rear as existing, and then we've got a sketch up of the how the proposal is going to appear in the proposed. In terms of representations, there's been four objections received. Key concerns include overlooking loss of privacy from the balcony and terrace, increased height, scale and perceived overdevelopment, loss of light and overshadowing, noise and disturbance, impact on outlook, concerns relating to ecology and the close proximity to Southlands National Park, and parking and general residential amenity. And there's also been a objection from Councillor Ivan Lyons, who's objected to the development on the grounds of a loss of privacy for neighbouring properties, and that's the reason it's before us today. So key considerations are design and impact on appearance and character of the area, impact on neighbouring amenity, biodiversity and ecological impacts, and impacts on neighbouring amenity, including overlooking and privacy. In terms of the conclusion and the planning balance, the proposal represents a domestic extension and roof alteration within an established residential area. The scale and form of the development are considered acceptable and would sit comfortably within the varied character of Windmill Drive, in accordance with policies CP12 for Brighton and Hove, City Plan Part 1, and also DM 18 and 21 of the City Plan Part 2. The increase in height of the roof is only approximately 1.9 metres, and it retains the existing eaves levels and avoids the appearance of a full additional storey. The main amenity concern relates to overlooking and also privacy from the proposed balcony and terrace. However, the separation distances of approximately 40 metres between the rear elevations and the properties to the south, and the sloping topography limit the direct impacts. It's about 20 metres from the rear to the edge of the rear gardens to the south, and a condition for privacy screening is recommended by condition. In terms of outlook, overbearing impact on light, the proposed extension will be viewed across separation distances of approximately 20 metres to the rear boundary and approximately 40 metres to neighbouring dwellings. Beyond, the 2.5 metres extension to the rear is also fairly modest, and the impacts on the adjoining neighbours is not significant. So overall, the substantial distances, together with the site's orientation and sloping topography, ensure that there will be no harmful sense of enclosure or material loss of light. The proposal will not result in any significant transport or parking impacts. So overall, the proposal is considered to accord with the development plan, and there are no material considerations that indicate planning permission should be refused. So the recommendation is to approve the application.
Thank you. Who has some questions? Councillor Theobald.
Yes, thank you. It looked on the back garden, it looked like there was no garden or trees. Have they got rid of all that? It looked bare. Am I wrong?
I think they have cleared the garden, and I think they're landscaping it at the moment. And I presume they will be planting some. They are. The plans is showing planting to be replaced.
It'd be better if they'd have kept the trees at least there, to save overlooking further down. But anyway.
Has anybody else got any questions? Apart from why are we here and where is Councillor Lyons?
Very fair, because he's always been here doing. But I don't know why he's not here today. He's probably got another meeting.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, he's the one who's called it to committee, and there were only 4 objections. So, Councillor Earthy, do you have a question for us, please?
Yeah, I mean, the overlooking thing, I think the officers have addressed it, haven't they? Because either side of the balcony is restricted so they can't see over the fence to their neighbours, and the people at the bottom of the garden are 40 metres away. So the overlooking thing can be dismissed, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's about the rear garden boundary wall. I think it's between about 17 and 22 metres just at the end of the garden. And then the houses beyond, yes, it's about 40 metres to the actual elevations of the houses beyond. And the houses to the side, there is screening proposed by condition. Yeah.
Surely they go
ahead, Councillor Earthy. One moment, Councillor.
All right, sorry, yeah.
So we have answered Councillor Lyons' objections. Yeah, so put it to bed, yeah.
Can I just say that it's about fair to say the balcony and the terrace, if you're sitting or standing, you can still see the gardens, all the gardens, and look at people if they want to sunbathe or whatever else. It's a privacy thing, really.
Do you have a question, Councillor?
Yeah, and as somebody just said, well, the house next door is two-storey. It's the only two-storey in the road, so this was set a precedent of. That two-storey one has been there many years ago, apparently.
Do you have a question, Councillor? Councillor Shears.
Just to address all the written concerns, the garden is south of the property, isn't it? So loss of light is going to be very minimal.
Yes, it's not. Light and overshadowing is stressed in the report, and it's not considered that there's a significant either loss of light or overshadowing. Who adjoining properties now?
Any more questions, Councillor Pickett?
So would you say then that very little has changed, or very little would change if they went with this design in terms of overlooking as to what there is now? What I'm saying is they can already be overlooked now, so nothing has changed, nothing will change.
Well, there is as existing. The house has got a terrace or a raised area at ground floor level. This is going to be slightly higher up, and there's also a terrace on the upper floors. Yes, there will be the potential for greater overlooking, but the distances that are there on these properties are not distances where we would consider that overlooking or loss of privacy to be overly harmful. Yeah. So there is a increase in overlooking, loss of privacy, but not to an extent which would consider would be able to sustain a refusal. Yeah.
And the screens presumably are being installed deliberately to offset that.
The screens would stop the views sort of directly sideways into the neighbouring property. So it would mean that any views to neighbouring gardens on either side are going to be sort of long, oblique view to the rear of the gardens. Yeah.
Any more questions, or shall we move to Councillor Theobald?
So this is on much higher ground, isn't it? And then you're looking down. Yes, it's much higher than the other properties below. So you're looking down on them. I just thought I think that's right, isn't it?
Yes, that is correct. It is on high ground. Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we move to debate if there are no more questions? Is that a question or debate? Debate. Off you go, Councillor Cattell. Take us away.
I'm just looking at the photographs, and the two-storey house next door, probably has a really fantastic view of the garden of this property if they wanted to spend their time staring out of the window into their neighbour's garden. And I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again, every time we have objections on overlooking because someone wants to have a balcony or a terrace. If this was me, I'd be sitting there, on a deck chair or a nice lounger, cup of tea, radio on, book, occasionally looking out my lovely garden, not staring over my neighbour's garden. I'd be a weirdo if I was going to do that. And I contend that anybody who stands forever looking over at their neighbours is a weirdo. And all those houses at the back in the road, I can't remember what the road is, they've all got massive double dormers, huge dormers, where, they could probably see more of this garden than anybody else. And also the house to the right, as I'm looking at it, has got, it's got a sort of a nice private little sort of area at the back, as we can see from the pictures. So if that's where they want to do their sunbathing, then they can do it there, I'm sure. But I just think it's, these objections on overlooking are just ludicrous. And that's it. I should be going with the recommendation to approve this, and it will make the house will look so much nicer. And I wish I could have a huge dressing room like the one they're proposing.
Thank you, Councillor, for your input.
Councillor Pickett.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of design, I think this is... Oh, is that what? Could you hear me? In terms of design, it's quite a modest compared to the other rebuilds that are along this road. I mean, a lot of the old bungalows have been redeveloped with 2 stories. So this is actually, I think, quite clever, the way that they've only changed the pitch of the roof to get an extra room in. And also, just to comment on the topography of the area, I mean, it's a hilly area, so some people are always going to be overlooked. So if you're worried about that, you just wouldn't move there, because that's the issue. So I think, definitely approve this.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm fine. I'd rather be overlooked than hear somebody's radio at loud pitch, actually, as you could tell. So I think noise is much more annoying than people looking. But anyway, apart from that, I think it's, yes, it's fine. Councillor Shears.
I want to know what people are doing in their gardens that's so fascinating, and that they don't want to be watched doing. That's what I want to know in all this. As we've said, it's a hilly area. This is Brighton and Hove. Apparently, we're between the South Downs and the sea, which means we have lots of hills and different topography. I grew up on the side. The town I grew up in was built more or less onto the side of a cliff, and you would go in your front door, you'd then go up 3 floors and into your back garden. Being able to see into the neighbour's garden was just part and parcel of life, and I'm sure it is here as well. The idea that people have suddenly realised that you can view each other's gardens because of the topography, it seems a bit bizarre. I think, as I've already alluded to, it's a south-facing garden as well, so there's no clear overshadowing. And I'm also slightly confused. It says in the report that some of the objections refer to the proximity of the South Downs. Now, again, the entire city is near the South Downs, so I don't really see the relevance of that. But other than that, I don't see any problem here. I think I'm happy for this to go through.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Theobald, and then Councillor Power.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think I've been a good one for a site visit, and you perhaps would have seen what was there, because it is a steep thing. It is steep, and it will be overlooking, though not the gardens and the properties below. It's their privacy, and it's just a shame. And that balcony and terrace is quite big, and there's only. Well, somebody said about being a lot double-storey houses there. There's not. There's one next door, but it's been there a long time. But this will start putting off for all the others to have this double-storey. And I just think it's a pity that people are overlooked and lose their privacy. So I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Councillor Power.
I'd just like to say this to me constitutes a significant upgrade to this property. If you're looking at the picture, the back garden was a mess. Sorry if anyone here owns it. No, it's not a mess now. It's being redeveloped, which is fine. And also, I go back to the previous application, which I know has no bearing, but, we've just talked about the need for family houses and bigger homes and homes for bigger families. And this will become a home fit for purpose for modern day living for a family. And if the rest of the road gets developed, crack on.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. My colleague here said it all, but yes, I will be voting for this. It's a very sensible design, and don't really see what the problem is. Thank you.
I'm just going to put my 2 pennies in and say this is a hilly city. Good luck to find somewhere flat. I can look out on my neighbours' gardens, but guess what? I choose not to. I should be voting for it. Shall we go to the vote? All those in favour? All those against?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that is agreed by 9 votes for and 1 against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the only thing that remains for me to do is to draw your attention to appeals. Please note that a list of new planning application appeals lodged with the planning inspector is attached to the agenda. There are no informal hearings or public inquiries listed, and a list of planning application appeal decisions from the planning inspectorate are attached to the agenda. I can say now that the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much for your time.